Hi, my name is Alex Witney. This is Conspiracy 101, and today we're going to be looking into the Hum. So this is a bit of a strange one, and something I actually, unlike most of the conspiracies we talk about on this show, something I have an actual experience of. The majority of the things we talk about, aliens, government conspiracies, etc., I don't really have a say into it. A lot of the stuff happened previously in the past, rather than previously in the future. However, this one I have, and if you know what it is, then you'll know that it's not necessarily uncommon. But as always, we will start with incognito mode and move straight away into the Wikipedia on the Hum. The Hum is a name often given to widespread reports of a persistent and invasive low-frequency humming, rumbling, or droning noise not audible to all people. Hums have been reported all over the world, including the United States, the United Kingdom, Australia, and Canada. They are sometimes named according to the locality where the problem has been particularly publicized, such as the Taos Hum in New Mexico and the Windsor Hum in Ontario. The hum does not appear to be a single phenomenon. Different causes have been attributed, including local mechanical sources, often from industrial plants, as well as manifestations of tinnitus or other biological auditory effects. So what we're going to do, now that you roughly know what the hum is go through some of the possible explanations, some of the local localities that they are, as detailed in this Wikipedia article. We've also got a couple of publications I'm going to read through. And then, hopefully, to finish it off, we will search for some examples of the hum, or at least try to listen to some variations of it. So, description. A 1973 report cites a university study of 50 cases of people complaining about a low throbbing background noise that others were unable to hear. The sound, always peaking between 30 and 40 hertz, was found to only be heard during the cool weather with a light breeze, and often early in the morning. Right, remember that, because that's relevant to my experience. These noises were often confined to a 10-kilometer, 6-mile wide area. The Taos Hum. I'm guessing I'm saying, I guess it's Taos. I do not know. A study into the Taos Hum in the early 1990s indicated that at least 2% could hear it. Each hearer had at a different frequency between 32 Hz and 80 Hz, modulated from 0.5 to 2 Hz. Similar results have been found in an earlier British study. It seems possible for hearers to move away from it, with one hearer in the Taos Hum reporting its range was 30 miles. There are approximately equal percentage of male and female hearers. Age does not appear to be a factor, with middle-aged people more likely to hear it. The Auckland Hum. In 2006, Tom Moir, then of the Massey University of Auckland, New Zealand, made several recordings that appeared to be the Auckland Hum. His previous research using simulated sounds had indicated that the hum was around 56 Hz. Ooh, okay. We might come back to those. It sounds like they've actually got them. The Windsor Hum. In late 2011, residents of Windsor, Ontario, south of Detroit, Michigan, began reporting a low droning vibration, sometimes loud enough to be irritating. One evening in 2012 saw 22,000 reports to officials. It was estimated that the sound was emanating from Zug Island, a heavily industrialized section of the River Rouge on the north bank of the Detroit River, which separates Windsor and Detroit. Canadian officials requested US assistance in determining the source, but local authorities were stymied by official refusals to allow access to the island. What's going on in the island, Kate? A steel mill operated by US Steel was the possible cause, but officials stated that no new equipment had been installed or activated around the time the noise became noticeable. However, when the blast furnaces were deactivated in April 2020, the noise went away as well. Spooky. Possible explanations. There is skepticism as to whether the hum exists as a physical sound. In 2009, the head of audiology at Adam Brooks Hospital in Cambridge, David Bailey, said he believed people's problems with the hum were based on the physical world about 1/3 of the time, and stemmed from people focusing too keenly on innocuous background sounds. The other 2/3 of the time, his research focused on... Hang on, let me read that again. About 1/3 of the time, it stemmed from people focusing too keenly on innocuous background sounds. Wait, what? Hum was based on physical world about 1/3 of the time. 2/3 of the time, it's innocuous background sounds. That's a terrible sentence. His research focuses on using psychology and relaxation techniques to minimize distress, which can lead to quieting or even removal of the noise. Jeff Leventhal, a noise and vibration expert, has suggested cognitive behavioral therapy may be effective in helping those affected, saying that it's a question of whether you tense up to the noise or are relaxed about it. The CBT was shown to work by helping people to take a different attitude to it. Mechanical devices. Although an obvious candidate, giving the common description of the hum is sounding like a diesel engine, the majority of reported hums have not been traced to a specific mechanical source. In the case of Kokomo, Indiana, a city with heavy industry, the origin of the hum was thought to have been traced to two sources. The first was a 36 Hz tone from a cooling tower of a local Daimler Chrysler casting plant, and the second was a 10 Hz tone from an air compressor intake at the Haynes International plant. After those devices were corrected, however, reports of the hum persisted. 3 hums have been linked to mechanical sources. The West Seattle hum was traced to a vacuum pump used by Cal Portland to offload cargo from ships. After Cal Portland replaced the silencers on the machine, the reports of the hum ceased. Likewise, the Wellington hum is thought to have been due to a diesel generator on a visiting ship. A 35 Hz hum in Windsor, Ontario is thought to have originated from the steel plant we were talking about earlier. One hum in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina was suspected of originating at a Santee Cooper substation, almost 2 miles away from the home of the couple who first reported it. The substation is home to the state's largest transformer. One couple sued the power company for disruption the hum was causing them. The hum was louder inside their house than out, in part, they believed, because the house vibrated in resonance to the 60 Hz hum. In the lawsuit, it was claimed that the volume of the hum was measured at up to 64.1 decibels in the couple's home. Some researchers speculate that very low-frequency radio waves, or extremely low-frequency radio waves, of the military TACAMO system, used by aircraft to communicate with submarines, might be the source of the hum. David Deming observes that the difficulty of locating a source of the hum could be attributed to its broadcast from moving aircraft in this fashion, although he notes that there have never been any reports of the hum around the US Navy's stationary broadcast stations at Cutler, Maine and Jim Creek, Washington. Deming considers it significant that the hum avoids publicity. Ooh, it's sentient, often subsiding in response to an increase in local press coverage, and speculates that this may be a sign that the source is anthropogenic in nature. Interesting. Tinnitus. A suggested diagnosis of tinnitus, a self-reported disturbance of the auditory system, is used by some physicians in response to complaints about the hum. Tinnitus is generated internally by the auditory and nervous system with no external stimulus. While the hum is hypothesized by some to be a form of low-frequency tinnitus, such as the Venus hum. Oh, blood through your veins. Some report it is not internal, being worse inside their homes than outside. However, others insist to be equally bad indoors and outdoors. Some people notice the hum only at home, while others hear it everywhere they go. Some sufferers report that it is made worse by soundproofing, e.g. double glazing, which serves only to decrease the environmental noise, thus making the hum more apparent. Spontaneous autoacoustic emissions. Some ears generate their own noises, called spontaneous autoacoustic emissions. Various studies have shown that 38 to 60% of adults with normal hearing have them, although the majority are unaware of these sounds. The people who do hear these sounds typically hear a faint hissing, cicada, insect sound, buzzing, ringing, especially if they're otherwise in complete silence. Researchers who looked into the tails hum considered acoustic emissions as a possibility. The jet stream. Ooh. Philip Dickinson, great name, suggests an Institute of Biology conference in 1973 that the 30 to 40 hertz hum could be a result of the jet stream, shearing against slower moving air and possibly being amplified by power line posts, some of which were shown to vibrate, or by rooms which had a corresponding resonant frequency. Jeff Leventhal of the Chelsea College Acoustics Group dismissed this suggestion as absolute nonsense. Animals. One of the many possible causes of the West Seattle hum considered was that it was related to the midshipman fish, also known as a toadfish. A previous hum in Sausalito, California, also on the west coast of the United States, was determined to be the mating call of a male midshipman. However, in that case, the hum was resonating through the houseboat hulls and affecting the people living on those boats. In the West Seattle case, the University of Washington researcher determined that it would be impossible for any resonating hum transmitted via tanker or boat hulls to be transmitted very far inland, certainly not far enough to account for the reports. The Scottish Association for Marine Science hypothesised that the nocturnal humming sound heard in High Hampshire in the UK could be produced by a similar sonic fish. The council believed this is unlikely, since such fish are not commonly found in the inshore waters of the UK. As of February 2014, although the source has still not been located, the sound had by then at least been recorded. Oh. We shall have a look at that one. Media coverage. The Taos hum was featured on the TV show Unsolved Mysteries, Top 10 Phenomena, and also as part of a BBC4 programme. In popular culture, 1998 episode of The X-Files titled Drive. Agent Mulder speculates that extremely low frequencies, radio waves, might be behind the so-called Taos hum. And it's also in a episode of Criminal Minds. Excellent. That was an amazing... Let's just have a look which one that was. Minutes. Nobody wants... Wayback Machine. Love it. Look at... Hey, it's hilarious. They actually just... They're like a council meeting or whatever. New Forest Environmental Protection Liaison Committee had an actual discussion about it. So a lot of these are PDFs from actual proper papers. Further reading. Oh, the World Hum Map Database. That looks awesome. We'll be going on that in a second. Let's go back up to the guy who recorded it and just look at those links. Where was it? No. Was it Windsor? I hate this when this happens. And it happens a lot, because I'm on Wikipedia a lot. Where you want to find something and you're like, I should have just clicked on it straight away, but I didn't. Record, recipes. Ooh. There it is. It was the Auckland one. Right, so where is it? This one? And was it 10? It was. Let's see if we can have a listen to it. There's some here. Will these links work? Or oh! That indeed, good sir, is a hum. That's the exact same thing, just longer. Okay, so at least we know roughly what it sounds like now. Is this one have it? Click play to listen to the sound. don't think it's available anymore on that site, which is a shame. So, let's talk about my experience. Before we read the articles, let me tell you a story. It was early in the morning. One day before work, I used to get up sometimes relatively early, slightly before 7, on my way to the car. It was midwinter, and there was a light breeze. And I got to my car, and I could hear a hum. And my first thoughts weren't necessarily this, the hum. It was the choir that one would hear, the trumpets and sounds of angels that you would hear in the coming apocalypse. That was my go-to thought. It wasn't, my ears are hearing something weird inside. It isn't what I actually think it was, which I'll explain in a second. I was like, oh crap, world's ending. And then about 2 seconds later, I guess because it was early in the morning, I was like, hang on a second, this is weird. And I stood there outside my car and just experienced it. I just stood there and I was like, this is odd, but I like it and I'm going to listen to it. And I listened to it, and the more I listened to it, the more I think, and it was coming from all directions. It didn't feel like it was coming from one direction. It felt like it was coming 360. And what I think it was the wind, in whatever fashion it did, had picked up the sound of a local 5-6 miles away motorway. And because it was relatively cold still with that breeze, I think it had picked up the sound of that motorway, and for some reason it just increased its level, its decibels, and it plopped it down right on top of me in front of my car, or at least the surrounding area. Because the more I listened to it, the more it sounded like that drone of cars going. And it was relatively early in the morning, not necessarily rush hour yet, but close. But there would have been lots of cars on the roads at that time. And I stood there and I listened to it and I was like, yeah, that's what it is, isn't it? That's what it is. And so I brushed it off and didn't think about it. But now it's suddenly relevant. Isn't that fun? So before we try and listen to a couple more, let's have a look at the World Hum Map Database project, which is very interesting. Well, let me click on that and then zoom in now. Awesome. So this is all the different places. So scroll. And let's have a look. So not many in my area. So I'm in this region here. So there's a couple in Cambridge. The A1M, the local motorway I was talking about. So some of these seem a bit like Huntingdon, a bit industrious, not crazy like, like Detroit and places like that. But it's very interesting that it's a lot Liverpool, Manchester, Birmingham, London. It's centered around urban areas, isn't it? You're not getting a lot in Snowdonia National Park, which makes you think that it is some kind of mechanical sound. But that doesn't necessarily mean it's not spooky or strange. So I'm guessing if you hear one, you can add that. So maybe I should add my hum. I could work it out what year it was. I can't actually remember what year it was. It would have been like 2017-ish, something like that, maybe. Very odd. Let's move on. Oh, excuse me. Sorry about that. Okay, so the hum, a global phenomenon, is heard by some in the Rochester region and Finger Lakes. So this is from Democrat and Chronicle. Does it have the date? No, it doesn't. Okay, but it's got a video, so let's listen in and watch.
No. Wait. It's a major annoyance because once you hear it, once you pick up that sound, regardless of its level of volume and audibility, it is.
I can't hear a bloody thing.
Get rid of. to locate it to stop it.
How
That's all I
very
want.
queer. Let me try something a little bit different. That. Change my earpiece into the other ear. Oh, technology. Such a fatal flaw in humanity. Right, and then if I fiddle with the settings, as we do so often. Monitor and output. Close. Let's see if this works.
No. Wait. It's a major annoyance because once you hear it, once you pick up that sound, regardless of its level of volume and audibility, it is a sound you can't get rid of. I want to locate it to stop it. That's all I want. I cannot live like this. I just can't. And I don't think anyone else in this neighborhood should have to either.
You can see this sound contains a lot of, that's noises or multiple drones. And another. That's the one we want. Right.
Can you tell what the source of this is?
No, it's so difficult to tell.
Well, at least we heard something. That was very strange. At the beginning, it didn't sound like it was going to be about anything or even have the hum at all. But, no, I don't want to play it again. No. Bad website. So yeah, very interesting. It's definitely a distinct hum. Not dissimilar to what I heard, but not quite there either. It was only in the pre-dawn hours that John Grace heard the hum. This was 15 years ago when he lived in Pulteneyville, the little community on the Lake Ontario shoreline in Wayne County. But he and his wife heard the hum in Adirondack well. So look, map showing 8,000 reports. So concentrated in the major cities and towns. Not so big in Saharan Africa or sub-Saharan Africa. It would come on for half a second, then stop, then come on for half a second, over and over. It sounds like distant foghorn or a refrigerator cycling, he told a Democrat and Chronicle reporter at the time. It's a very strange thing. Throbbing sound eventually went away, and as Grapes told the reporter recently, the topic moved way down on the scale of items of interest in the overall scheme of things. Still, he remains among the ranks of Rochester area residents who believe they've heard the unexplained sound now known as the hum. How long people have been hearing the hum, which typically is described as a very low-pitched throbbing sound, so persistent it causes fatigue and irritability, is part of the mystery. Most presume it is an artifact of the modern age. The first documented mass experience may have been in 1978 in the English port city of Bristol. Bristol is a shithole. That's probably why. That was a joke. I'm sorry. Sorry, Bristolians. In 1991, people in Taos, New Mexico experienced it. In 1999, it was Kokomo, Indiana's turn. In 2006, it was Auckland, New Zealand. 2 years ago, a hum outcry in Windsor, Canada, prompted a government investigation that identified the source as somewhere on the Zug Island outside Detroit. We've been over this, yep. There's never been a publicly acknowledged cluster of hum here as in New York, but that doesn't mean they're not present. For proof, visit the World Hum Map, the brainchild of Canadian educator and researcher Glenn McPherson. McPherson said he heard the hum in 2012. Intrigued, he launched an effort to learn more about it. In the 5.5 years since then, this map has been map and associated databases recorded more than 8,000 detailed validated reports. Validated by whom? Roughly 150 of them were filed by New Yorkers, including more than a dozen in Rochester Finger Lakes region. The map identifies hearers by location, but not name. Here are what some have heard locally. Grease. Like a diesel engine idling. That's what people from Greece sound like. The hum can make my eardrums feel like they're vibrating. Rochester, August 2016. A low distant hum, like the sound of a large generator or giant speaker left turned on. Bristol, Ontario County, March 2016. Sounds like a diesel tractor pushing something. Canadaw Lake, May 2014. A truck engine. Medina, Orleans County, September 2017. Low frequency that seems to oscillate. It sounds like a large engine from far away. Middlesex, Yates County, February 2017. A very low hum, like a ceiling fan running, or a generator, or a truck idling in the distance. It kind of throbs up and down. Spencerport, September 2016. A deep, quiet rumble. Sounds like a truck idling a couple of streets away, or like constant, low thunder rumbling. The map contains no reports from a Highland Park neighbourhood where people have been hearing a sound with a slightly higher pitch than the hum. Jeanette Cargill, who lives in Rochester's South Wedge neighbourhood, also has not put a dot on the hum map, but after enduring a series of auditory surprises, she might be a candidate to do so. I heard a noise. It was loud enough to shake the dishes in my house. It was continuous, Cargill said, referring to an extended episode one afternoon a few weeks ago. It was audible, also to my dog. She was perking her ears up and looking around. We've got some sounds which we'll go through in a minute. The disrupted sound was a low-pitched drone, sort of rumble. It almost sounded like thunder, like extended thunder, the director's cut. She experienced a number of times in the last month or so. She looked outside for a low-flying airplane or idling truck, but never found anything. That was my first thought as well. I looked up. I was like, what's that? What's that going on? I'm not prepared to say it was the hum yet, but it was very loud noise that had no source, she said. Okay, what is it? Not one hum, but many. Despite decades of discussion and number of studies, there is no consensus about the origin of the hum. Certainly not everyone who reports hearing the sounds is detecting the same thing. Some people may be hearing an unmuffled motor or generator down the street, while others may be hearing the hum. Hearers often say they can't discern a source, that the bothersome noise just appears from the blue. At times can be heard even when they move to a new location. Theories abound. Modern industrial equipment, power lines, pipelines, telecommunication systems have been favourites. Very low-frequency radio transmitters used to explore space have been suggested. So they have systems that send extremely low frequencies, waves, through the Earth's bedrock to communicate with submerged submarines. Inevitably, conspiracy theorists see secret government programs or extraterrestrials as the source of the throbbing sound. This paranoia was exploited in a 1998 episode of the X-Files television program in which Navy elf antenna drives 2 people mad, and worse. It's been shown the Earth itself is emitting a humming sound, though the frequency is far too low to be audible by humans. Some theorize it's not actually a sound, but vibrations or electromagnetic waves that hearers' bodies interpret as auditory. That's an interesting one, because you can get like bone conducting headphones, can't you? So it doesn't use air like normal headphones do. It moves your bones slightly. Very odd. Contrarily, physicians sometimes write off the hum as some form of tinnitus, the ringing in the ears that is related to hearing loss and other internal causes. Hearers dispute this, saying hum has an external source. Yeah, definitely when I heard it wasn't tinnitus. It is most often apparent between 12 midnight and dawn, and it sometimes is more noticeable indoors than out. When the hum is present, most people don't hear anything unusual. Only 2 to 11% of local residents pick it up, according to studies in Taos and Kokomo. That's interesting, because people do have different ears and hear things differently. Like it was a big thing when I was a teenager of these noise machine things that they'd put outside of shops so that groups of young ruffians would not gather, and I could never hear them, but my friends could. And I think it's only meant to work on young people whose ears are more delicate. My ears are obviously trash because I couldn't hear a thing. Read that. But the minority of people who hear it pay the price. Thousands of people who have posted their stories on the World Hum map say it causes sleeplessness, irritability, fatigue, and headaches. It can be an ever-present malevolence. Consider this account of the World Hum map from someone who lives in Webster. I heard this noise even in the middle of winter, after a fresh snow, and the power's out in the whole neighbourhood, the person wrote. It vibrates the walls, so that if my headboard is just so, it will vibrate the headboard of my bed, even when the power's out. Interesting. Let's watch this bad boy. Oh, so this is the UK. A little bit closer to home. There is no doubt that is a hum. That's very interesting. Right, let's scroll up and listen to a couple others. There was the area here. So listen to these. These are the ones that we've already heard, aren't they? So let's just rehear the enhanced audio. They are much closer to what I heard when I heard it. It was a lot higher pitched, not as deep and as rumbling, but more sort of like a chorus of angels. So, moving on, we have another website, another mystery unexplained, and let's have a read. The Hum. A worldwide mystery sound explained. Oh, wait, there's no question mark. That the same map? I think that's the same map. Yeah, worldwide hum map. Okay. The hum is a mysterious, low-pitched noise that bothers up to 2% of people worldwide. It's been annoying residents in San Francisco's sunny Sunset District, where recently there's been an outbreak of reports. In this story, we demystifies this strange global phenomenon. Dale's house vibrates. Last year, I did a story about a bridge called the Tracking Down the Mysterious Hum in San Francisco. It was that story which inspired Dale Toutage to reach out to me about his own mysterious hum. Dale lives in the Sunset District. Over the phone, he tells me that this is his third house he's lived in the neighborhood that hums and vibrates. It's annoying, he says, and keeps him and his young daughters from getting sleep. I go to visit Dale, and he takes me down to his garage to show me the hum. Huddled in the corner, we watch graphs form on his laptop screen. Measurements he's taken of the tremors in his home. The graphs are being generated by a data logger, an expensive vibration measuring device. Dale's an engineer by trade. He works in energy efficiency, so this kind of technical stuff comes naturally. He takes the graphs and data and logs and generates and analyzes them and puts them on his website he made. Oh yes, we're looking at that bad boy. San Francisco, Sunset and Parkside, vibration pollution and the hum. Interesting. So we've got the Illinois hum study, natural gas transmission pipelines, some measurements, example, night some one, observations. Why is my house vibrating? Sounds like a goosebump book. What it feels like. Even from a deep sleep, it wakes me abruptly. It is a very uncomfortable sensation. It's hard to describe, but this is some of the effects my family has had. Zoom in a little bit, that's hard to read. A rapid heartbeat, short and shallow breathing, hearing humming sound like an air compressor or idling truck, anxiety, restlessness. This is crossing over to a little bit of Havana syndrome, isn't it? Where it's like, which is another conspiracy theory, which I'm sure we'll get to, as I repeatedly say every episode, in which noises, supposedly, or something else is being used to make people in certain situations ill. So it was famously in the Havana American embassy in Havana, Cuba. And a bunch of people just get ill for no real reason. And maybe it's some kind of hum. How very interesting. Neighbors have been similarly affected. Restless leg syndrome. Interesting. Possible causes. So, cross that. Appliances or mechanical equipment in neighbouring buildings. No. Traffic. No. I think what I heard was traffic. Natural gas. No. Auxiliary water supply system. No. What it could be. A gas pipeline transmission system. Domestic water supply system. Well or reservoir. Street and building damage. That's interesting. So that could be, is that cause or causation? Cause and effect. Measurements, contact map, a map. I do love a good map. Ooh, that's a pretty map. Oh, America and your rectangles. Right, where were we? To raise awareness and find support, the data logger is attached to one of his water pipes, where he suspects the hum is coming from, but he's not sure. So, yeah, that does sound... Look at all that stuff. He seems pretty happy. It seems like the strong on the street side, the intensity or magnitude, Dale says. But whenever I think it's obvious, I take a measure that's counter to that. It's just confusing. Baffling. Dale tells me he comes down here in the middle of the night to chase the vibration hum when it keeps him up, which is often. I noticed the bags under his eyes the moment I walked in. His wife, Christina, can't hear or feel it herself, but she's convinced, like Dale, that it still affects her and their kids. Whenever it starts, their 3-year-old daughter wakes up, and her heart rate monitor spikes. Why do they have a heart rate monitor on them? Dale thinks it's affecting their neighbours too. We've seen that in every place, he says. Bathroom lights come on, the neighbour's building across the street. They always have their TV on early in the morning, on those really bad days. It seems so obvious. There are a handful of people in the Sunset District who hear the hum like Dale. They found Dale through his website and social media app Nextdoor. But most people Nextdoor is a social media app so you can talk to your neighbors. That's hilarious. But most people he talks with don't take it that seriously. Very pretty map. Well done. I like it. Chasing the hum. It's like tornado chasers. Hum chasers. Hum. Ha. I agree to look into this hum for Dale. Do it for Dale. Hashtag do it for Dale. I want to find out if other people in the neighborhood really are experiencing the same thing as him. To learn more, I head over to the house on Nelson Sarney, who met Dale through Nextdoor. This feels like an ad for Nextdoor, doesn't it? Nelson's a musician, so he's actually made recordings of the hum. On his couch, he put on headphones and plugged them into an 8-track recorder on his coffee table. He plays it back at max volume. I can just barely hear something that sounds like some kind of ominous creature breathing. Then Nelson shows me the post he made on Nextdoor, in which he describes the hum he hears and asks if anyone else in the hood is hearing something similar. I looked at it a few days later and saw a tremendous chain of replies, Nelson says, and I didn't even read them. Oh God, I thought. Nelson's post got more than 100 comments from about 60 people. I end up personally speaking with 9 of them, and they all do describe experiencing something similar. They're usually the only ones in the house who hear it. They say it's only heard indoors, even if some rooms better than others, and it's low pitched. See, this is very different. This is a very different hum. Shows the differences there are. I'm not going to read all this because I think most of it... Okay, here we go. The first hum that made big news was in Bristol, an industrial town. Barely. In Britain. That was way back in the 1970s. There have been others we've heard, yep. One University of New Mexico study which says that up to 2% in the populated area may be able to hear a hum. They all describe the same thing. A low-pitched sound that's only heard indoors, and that's only heard indoors. That's not true. And that sounds like a distant piece of machinery or engine idling. Okay, do we have any recordings? Because this is kind of... Oh yeah, these are very interesting. Oh, okay. That's not interesting. That's not what I thought it was. An exhaust in Sydney, Australia caused a low-frequency hum. But some buildings in America, and I think in London as well, major cities, they look like houses on the outside, but on the inside there'll be like an electrical station, or an oil pump or something like that. And it's obviously just hiding it in plain sight. But that might be a reason behind it, because you're not expecting it. If that makes sense. You know, you go, oh well, you know, the road's over there. There's a steel factory like 15 miles away, but really you've got an electricity substation thing, you know, a couple of blocks away. What? This is a long article I don't care to read. Combination of facts show this is the strongest explanation we have for biggest mysteries. What is it? What is it? Tell me what it is. Oh, wow. University of Salford, Manchester. Go on, you Red Devils! Is there an abstract? Is this the abstract? That's a lot of stuff. I want an abstract. Germany, Sweden, Denmark, and the Netherlands, and Poland. Conclusion? Whoa, look at all this data sets. It's beautiful. Oh, I've gone into the appendices. God damn it. Just want to conclude. Right, let's find the conclusion. Lab test. Concluding remarks. Field studies show that various national criteria were reasonably successful in differentiating between positively identified and unidentified problems. Furthermore, the former corresponds to a case of VHO. And if faced with complaints about LFN, was suitable, blah, 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 blah. So they're getting it within a certain frequencies, which makes sense. Swedish curves. Show me your Swedish curves. We expect a reasonably high proportion of cases to remain unsolved. That is just the perfect quote to end on, I feel. we expect a reasonably high proportion of cases to remain unsolved. Beautiful. Right. Let's move on. I've had enough of this. I've had enough of this crap. I've had enough of this. Let's go to picture of the week. And this picture of the week, I keep coming back to them. But sort of last photos of people. And this is a photo. Let me get rid of that picture of the week thing. This is a photo of someone called David A. Johnston. And this is a final picture of him. And he's studying Mount St. Helens, which if you're American, you probably heard of. If you're not, then you might not have heard of. It's a very big volcanic mountain, a volcano that went off quite spectacularly in 1980. And he was caught up in it. And this was one of the last photos he was taken. He was a researcher, a volcanologist who was measuring data on it. What was really weird about Mount St. Helens, if you don't know about it, the volcano, it didn't come out the top like people were necessarily expecting. It kind of came out the side, and it caught a few people unawares, including Mr. David A. Johnston. And there is some really good little quotes. Here we go. Okay. So the volcano went off, and there are things called lahars, which is basically a type of mud flow, but it's really, really fast and really, really hot. Like super, super fast. Can't outrun it. So before being struck by a series of flows, David A. Johnston, at their fastest, would have taken less than a minute to reach his position. Johnson managed to radio his USGS, United States Geological Survey, co-workers with the message, Vancouver, Vancouver, this is it. Seconds later, the signal from the radio went silent, and all contact with the geologist was lost. Initially, there was some debate as to whether Johnston had survived. Records soon showed a radio message from fellow eruption victim and amateur radio operator Gary Martin, located near the Coldwater Peak and farther north of Johnston's position, reporting his sighting and eruption enveloping the Coldwater 2 observation post. As the blast overwhelmed Johnston's post, Martin declared solemnly, "Gentlemen, the camper and car that's sitting over to the south of me is covered. It's going to hit me too," he said before his radio went silent. That is super scary, and there are lots of different what's the word for it? Lots of different examples of this kind of thing where someone knows they're about to die and sends a message either of warning or it's usually a warning, isn't it? Or a last sort of will or testament kind of thing. And I always found these very, very interesting, very somber, very sad. But knowing about them, this picture has become famous, especially within volcanologist and geography circles. And I just wanted to share that with you because it's a very interesting story. Go read up on Mount St. Helens. It's a very interesting one. There are lots of great documentaries, obviously, because it happened in America, so they're obviously going to love it and do lots of documentaries about it. And unfortunately, quite a few people died when they probably shouldn't have needed to. They knew this thing was going to happen. They could have been slightly better prepared. And when the volcanologists are dying, that's when you know it's bad. So that's the end of that. Have you ever heard the hum? Please tell me if you have. Very interested to know. But that's it. Thank you very much for watching. New episodes every Saturday. Bye, everyone.